Welcome to another exciting deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins where ordinary change turns into treasures worth millions. And today, we are going to explore a story that will completely blow your mind because it revolves around the 1966 quarter dollar. A coin that in one unbelievable case has been valued at an astronomical $11 million, not because of the metal it contains or the year it was minted in, but because of the astonishing array of errors and mistakes that slipped through the U.S. Mint's strict quality control and created something so unique that collectors would go to unimaginable lengths to add it to their collections. And in this journey, we are not only going to talk about why this 1966 quarter became so rare, but also dig deep into the background of coin production during that era, the shift in composition that was happening in the mid-1960s. The minting process flaws, the double strikes, the off-centers, the planchet mistakes, the overstrikes on foreign coins, and the unbelievable circumstances that could lead a simple 25-cent piece to be worth more than entire collections of other coins combined. So buckle up because this ride will take us through the technical, historical, and numismatic aspects of one of the most talked about era coins in U.S. history, and by the end of this discussion, you will be looking at every coin in your pocket with a brand new perspective. So let's start at the beginning with what makes the 1966 quarter so special, and why collectors are fascinated by this year in particular, because 1966 was smack in the middle of a huge transition in American coinage, when the U.S. Mint had just eliminated silver from quarters in 1965. Shifting to a copper-nickel clad composition due to the rising cost of silver and the nationwide coin shortage that pushed the mint to increase production massively. And during this frenzied period with presses running at full speed and new alloys being tested, the chances of errors skyrocketed, which is why so many oddities can be found in coins from the mid-1960s. But among them, the 1966 quarter stands out. Now imagine a coin struck on the wrong planchet, perhaps a leftover silver planchet from 1964 that somehow got mixed in, instantly making it more desirable because of its silver content, but combined with the wrong year it becomes an anomaly. Then imagine striking errors, like double dies, where the design elements show doubling, especially in the lettering of Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, or the date. These errors are highly sought after and command impressive premiums. But what makes the $11 million example so unbelievable is that it reportedly carries multiple layered errors that all compound into one, starting with being struck on a transitional silver planchet, then misaligned during striking, resulting in a 15% off-center strike, and on top of that showing strong doubling in the date and motto. And if that wasn't enough, some specimens even have been rumored to be overstruck on foreign planchets intended for coins of other countries, which were being produced by the U.S. Mint at the time. Imagine a quarter with ghostly remnants of another design underneath its surface, creating a dramatic, eye-catching look that collectors know is not only rare, but nearly impossible to replicate. So when you combine the historical significance of a coin minted during the transition from silver to clad, the actual rarity of such multiple errors occurring on the same coin, and the feverish demand among collectors to own something that literally cannot be found anywhere else, you end up with a coin that skyrockets in value to the point of being considered priceless. Yet in the rare instance, when it was offered at auction, the bidding war pushed it all the way to $11 million, making it one of the most expensive error coins ever sold. And this leads us to wonder why error coins in general capture so much attention, and why collectors are willing to pay sums that seem unreal for tiny mistakes. The answer lies in both psychology and rarity, because while a regular 1966 quarter is worth 25 cents and even a pristine uncirculated version might only fetch a few dollars, an error coin represents a unique story frozen in metal, a story of how machines, human oversight, and historical circumstances combine to produce something unintended and unrepeatable. And in the world of collecting, uniqueness is everything. So when we look at this 1966 quarter, we have to understand the broader minting context. The mint was trying to replace silver coins quickly, and the new copper-nickel-clad process caused a variety of striking problems, including weak strikes, missing details, and planchet laminations. Sometimes coins were struck with incomplete cladding exposing the copper core. Others had missing reading on the edge or partial collars, giving them unusual shapes. And while many of these errors were tossed out during quality control, a few slipped into circulation where sharp-eyed collectors and lucky individuals discovered them years later. And that's where the excitement begins, because these discoveries are like hidden treasure hunts. Imagine someone buying a soda in 1966 and unknowingly passing an error quarter worth millions decades later. Stories like that fuel the passion for searching through pocket change and coin rolls even today, and the fact that the 1966 quarter with these compounded errors exists reminds collectors that the mint is not infallible, and that perfection is not always what creates value. In fact, imperfection is what drives the rarity. Now, when we analyze the details further, let's break down the types of errors that could make such a coin so valuable. First, the double die obverse is one of the most popular because it creates noticeable doubling that can be seen with the naked eye, making it accessible for collectors to spot and increasing demand. Second is the off-center strike, which shows a dramatic shift of the design away from the coin center, leaving blank space on one side. The more off-center without losing the date, the higher the value. Third is the wrong planchet strike, especially when involving silver, since quarters after 1964 were supposed to be clad. A 1966 dated coin struck on a 90% silver planchet is technically impossible, but minting errors sometimes defy expectations. Fourth is the overstrike on foreign coins, which is extremely rare but documented in other cases, adding layers of intrigue. And finally, there are mint-made anomalies like die cracks, cuds, and laminations, which, though common in minor forms, can add up in dramatic fashion on a single coin. And in the legendary $11 million specimen, it is said that multiple of these errors appear together, making it essentially one of a kind. And that is what pushed collectors to break records at auction. But beyond the financial aspect, the story of this coin also teaches us something important about history, economy, and human fascination with rarity, because during the mid-1960s, the government was under intense pressure to eliminate silver from circulating coins due to hoarding and shortages. And yet, by accident, a relic of the silver era slipped through, carrying the date of 1966, but embodying the past, symbolizing a clash between old and new. And in that clash, collectors find deep meaning. It is not just about metal, but about a moment in time, preserved in an error, a glitch in the system that became immortal. So when we hear that it sold for $11 million, we might be shocked, but to the numismatic community it makes sense, because no amount of money can truly measure the uniqueness of such a piece. And for everyday people, the lesson is that treasures can be hiding in plain sight, that the change in your pocket might contain surprises waiting to be discovered, which is why so many hobbyists spend countless hours searching coin rolls, studying varieties, and sharing discoveries online. The thrill of finding a coin that nobody expected is priceless, and the 1966 quarter dollar valued at $11 million stands as the ultimate example of why coin collecting is not just a hobby, but a passion that blends history, art, economics, and detective work into one. And as we wrap up this incredible story, it's a perfect reminder to always check your coins carefully, because the next legendary error might be sitting in your hands right now. So if you enjoyed diving deep into the unbelievable story of the 1966 quarter dollar worth $11 million, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel for more amazing stories about rare coins and hidden treasures, and keep your eyes open, because you never know when the next big discovery will turn a simple coin into a fortune. Next, 1984 D quarter dollar USA coin. Today, because what we are about to uncover together is one of the most astonishing stories in the world of coins and numismatics, a story so fascinating that it turns an everyday object, something you might spend without a second thought, into a treasure that could literally change your life. And today we are going to dive deep into the mystery, the errors, the possibilities, and the extraordinary circumstances that make the 1984 quarter dollar one of the most valuable and desirable coins in history, with certain rare error examples being valued at a jaw-dropping $6 million. Yes, you heard that right. $6 million for a single quarter that was originally meant to be worth only 25 cents. And at first, that may sound completely unbelievable. But the world of coin collecting is full of stories, just like this, where small mistakes during the minting process create coins so rare and unique that collectors will pay unimaginable sums to own them. And when we talk about the 1984 quarter, minted at the Denver Mint during a time of massive coin production and transitional adjustments in the U.S. Mint, we are talking about a coin that exists at the intersection of history, technology, and human error, and it is those errors that transform an ordinary coin into a multi-million-dollar masterpiece. So let's go step by step to unravel this incredible story, because when we look at the 1984 quarter, the first thing we must remember is that quarters of the 1980s were struck in copper nickel clad rather than the 90% silver used before 1965. And while most 1984 quarters are ordinary clad coins worth only face value, there are examples where the minting process went terribly wrong in ways that today make them priceless. For instance, some 1984 quarters are known to have been struck on wrong planchets, meaning that instead of being struck on a proper copper-nickel quarter blank, they were struck on dime planchets, nickel planchets, or even on foreign coin planchets prepared for overseas contracts the U.S. Mint was fulfilling at the time. And when that happens, you get coins that are the wrong size, the wrong weight, and sometimes even the wrong color, and those coins are instantly collectible. Now imagine finding a 1984 quarter struck on a copper set planchet, weighing only 3.11 grams instead of 5.67 grams, and bearing an off-center strike so that part of George Washington's portrait is missing, while the date and mint mark still remain visible. Such a coin would already be worth thousands, but in uncirculated condition, and with multiple errors stacked together, its value can soar into the millions. And this is only one of the possibilities, because there are also examples of double die errors where the design on the coin die was impressed twice at slightly different angles, leading to dramatic doubling of features like Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, or the date 1984 itself. And such double dies are among the most coveted errors in numismatics, because the doubling is visible to the naked eye and immediately stands out even to non-collectors. And when you combine a double die with another dramatic error like an off-metal strike, the result is a once-in-a-generation rarity that collectors would fight over at auction, driving the price up into the millions. And then we have off-center errors where the design of the coin is not aligned correctly during striking, leaving a portion of the blank unstruck and a crescent-shaped blank area that adds uniqueness. The more dramatic the off-center strike, while still preserving the date and mint mark, the more valuable the coin. So a 1984 quarter that is 50% off-center yet still shows the 1984 date and D mint mark would be a dream find. And if such a coin also had a double die feature, it could easily become one of the most valuable quarters in existence. And then there are broad strike errors caused when the collar die fails to hold the coin in place during striking, leading to a coin that is wider and flatter than normal. And there are clipped planchets where a portion of the blank metal is cut away before striking, resulting in a quarter with a crescent-shaped clip that collectors immediately recognize as an error. And perhaps the most visually striking of all are double denomination errors, where a coin is struck on a planchet that already has the design of another denomination. For example, if a dime was already struck and then fed into the press for a quarter strike, you'd get a bizarre hybrid coin with overlapping designs of two denominations. And if such a mistake happened in 1984 at the Denver Mint, the resulting quarter dime hybrid would be one of the rarest modern errors imaginable and worth millions. And we cannot ignore struck-through errors either, where foreign objects like grease, wire, cloth, or even another coin interfered with the striking process, leaving behind strange indentations, missing details, or bizarre impressions that make each struck-through coin absolutely unique, and uniqueness is a key driver of value because collectors crave one-of-a-kind pieces that no one else can own. And when a unique or nearly unique 1984D quarter with dramatic errors comes to auction, the bidding can quickly escalate into the millions as wealthy collectors, museums, and investors compete for the chance to own such a rarity. And this is why some 1984D quarters have been valued at $6 million. Not because every 1984D quarter is worth that much, but because the rarest error examples represent a perfect storm of rarity, condition, demand, and historical significance. And let's talk about condition because in numismatics the grade of a coin is absolutely crucial. A heavily circulated error coin might still be valuable, but a mint state or uncirculated example with full luster and nowhere is exponentially more valuable. And if a 1984D quarter with one of these dramatic errors survived in pristine condition, carefully preserved by some chance rather than being spent and worn down in circulation, then it becomes even more desirable, and auction houses have reported record-breaking prices for error coins precisely because of this. And what is even more fascinating is how ordinary people sometimes discover these rarities by accident. A coin passed down from a relative, found in a jar of change, or spotted in pocket change by someone with a sharp eye, and suddenly that coin turns out to be worth millions. Stories like these inspire people all around the world to look closely at their coins, to examine the small details, to weigh and measure them, and to learn about the possibilities of minting mistakes, because even though the odds of finding a $6 million 1984D quarter are extremely slim, the possibility itself fuels the excitement and the hunt, and that thrill is what keeps the hobby of coin collecting alive, because it is not just about owning coins, but about discovering stories, history, and treasures hidden in plain sight. And the 1984D quarter story is a perfect example of how errors and mistakes at the mint can lead to unimaginable value decades later. So when you look at your coins, don't just see them as ordinary change, see them as potential treasures, because you never know if you might be holding a piece of history worth millions. And that is the magic of numismatics, where a simple coin can carry with it an extraordinary story of human error, historical context, rarity, and immense value. And the legend of the 1984D quarter worth $6 million is one of the best examples of this magic, reminding us all to keep our eyes open, to stay curious, and to never underestimate the power of small details that can turn ordinary pocket change into a fortune. Next, 1983p quarter dollar USA coin. The most thrilling and eye-opening journey into the world of rare coins, where the smallest details and the most unexpected mistakes can transform an ordinary piece of change into an unbelievable treasure worth millions of dollars. And today, we are diving into the astonishing story of the 1983p quarter dollar that has been valued at an incredible $3 million because of the rare combination of errors, striking anomalies, minting mistakes, and unusual circumstances surrounding its creation, survival, and discovery. So if you have ever wondered how a coin with a face value of just 25 cents could rise to become one of the most valuable modern quarters in existence, then get ready, because this tale will captivate you with every twist and turn. And by the end of it, you might just find yourself looking through your own pocket change with a magnifying glass and a new appreciation for the mysteries hidden in everyday coins. Because the 1983p quarter is a perfect example of how rarity, error, and intrigue come together to create a true numismatic legend. Now, to set the stage, we need to recall that 1983 was a time when the United States Mint was fully producing copper-nickel-clad quarters after the end of silver issues in 1964, and billions of these 1983 quarters were struck for general circulation, particularly at the Philadelphia Mint, making the typical 1983p quarter worth little more than its face value. However, what makes this extraordinary $3 million specimen different is that it combines several dramatic and extremely rare errors all on a single coin. And when multiple minting mistakes converge in one coin, the result is something so rare that it becomes essentially unique, which is exactly what happened here. The first and most obvious error that experts noticed when studying this coin was the double die obverse, where George Washington's portrait shows strong doubling on his eye, lips, and chin, along with noticeable doubling on the motto, "In God We Trust." And the date 1983 also reveals a spread that is impossible to ignore. And double dies have always fascinated collectors because they represent a mistake during the hubbing process when the design is transferred to the working die. And while some double dies are minor, this one is bold and dramatic, making it extremely valuable. But this is only the beginning, because the reverse side of the coin presents an equally startling anomaly. The eagle design, which should be crisp and centered, is instead struck about 15% off-center, leaving part of the rim blank and causing the lettering "United States of America" and $quarter to appear uneven and slightly distorted. And off-center strikes are one of the most popular error types because they are visually striking and easy to recognize. But when paired with a double die obverse, the rarity and value increase exponentially. Yet the surprises don't stop there, because metallurgical testing on this coin revealed that it was not struck on the typical copper-nickel-clad planchet used in 1983, but instead on a leftover transitional planchet composed of 90% silver, similar to the composition used prior to 1965. And this discovery stunned experts, because by 1983 silver planchets were long gone from standard circulation. So the fact that one could have been used accidentally decades later makes this coin incredibly mysterious, and such off-metal errors are among the rarest and most valuable in numismatics. But this $3 million quarter adds yet another layer of intrigue, with evidence of a die clash where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet in between, leaving behind faint ghost-like impressions of the eagle's wings on Washington's cheek and hair, a visual oddity that adds character and uniqueness. And beyond that, there are also signs of die cracks running along the rim near the word "Liberty," which give the coin a distinctive appearance, almost like raised veins across the surface. And collectors love such dramatic die breaks because they serve as a fingerprint of the minting process gone wrong. And when you add all of these elements together, you are left with a coin that is nothing short of miraculous, a true convergence of minting chaos that produced a specimen unlike any other. And it is this one-of-a-kind combination that justifies the staggering $3 million valuation, because while you can find coins with a double die, or coins struck off-center, or even coins struck on wrong planchets, it is virtually unheard of to find all of these errors combined into one coin, making it a genuine treasure that belongs in the upper echelons of numismatic history. And part of what makes this story even more fascinating is the journey this coin must have taken, perhaps entering circulation unnoticed, being spent countless times at vending machines, gas stations, or convenience stores before someone finally noticed something unusual about it. Maybe the off-center strike caught their eye, or the unusual weight of the silver planchet felt different in hand, and from there it may have traveled to a coin dealer, been submitted to a grading service, authenticated, and eventually entered the auction world, where collectors recognized it as one of the most extraordinary modern-era quarters ever discovered. And when it finally crossed the auction block, the competition was fierce, with bidders driving the price higher and higher until it reached the incredible $3 million mark, cementing its place as one of the most valuable quarters ever. And this story is not just about the coin itself, but about the broader lessons it teaches us about the minting process, the role of error in creating value, and the possibilities that even modern coins can hold incredible worth if the right mistakes occur. Because while billions of perfect coins leave the mint every year, perfection is common while imperfection is rare, and it is that rarity that collectors chase with such passion. And when we think about the different types of errors that can make a coin valuable, double dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, die clashes, die cracks, clipped planchets, transitional metals, and more, we realize that each represents a tiny glimpse into the fallibility of the minting process. A reminder that machines and humans can both make mistakes, and it is those mistakes that sometimes create million-dollar treasures. And the 1983 P quarter is the ultimate example of this phenomenon, showing us that even in an era when silver was long gone and quality control was advanced, a coin could still slip through that defied expectations and rewrote the rules of value. And when you consider that this coin started life as a simple piece of pocket change intended for everyday transactions yet ended up as a multi-million-dollar artifact, you begin to see the magic of numismatics, the way history, chance, and rarity converge to tell a story far bigger than the coin itself. And it is this magic that keeps collectors searching, hunting through rolls of quarters, examining every detail under magnification, because they know that the next great discovery might be out there waiting, and the legend of the $3 million 1983 P quarter will continue to inspire those searches for generations to come, reminding us all that treasure can appear in the most unexpected places, and perhaps the most exciting thought of all is that another such coin could still be out there in circulation or tucked away in someone's jar of change, waiting to be found, waiting to change someone's life. And that possibility is what keeps the dream alive and makes stories like this so endlessly fascinating for everyone who loves the thrill of hidden wealth in the world of coins. Next, 1979 $quarter USA coin. Thank you for joining today, because what you are about to hear is one of the most incredible, fascinating, and almost unbelievable stories from the world of coin collecting, a story that takes an everyday coin we all know and use, the United States $quarter, and elevates it to the level of a multi-million-dollar rarity. Today's focus is on the 1979 $quarter, a coin that at face value is worth just 25 cents, but due to extraordinary minting errors, mistakes, and anomalies has become one of the most talked about rarities in numismatic circles, with one specimen being valued at an astounding $5 million. And in this deep dive we are going to explore the entire journey of how such a coin could exist, the different types of errors that can transform a normal quarter into a priceless treasure, the possibilities of how such mistakes slip through the minting process, and why collectors and investors are willing to pay such life-changing sums for coins like this. Because this story is not just about money, it is about rarity, history, human error, and the thrill of discovering something hidden in plain sight. Now let's set the scene by going back to 1979, a year when the U.S. Mint was producing billions of coins for circulation. The Washington quarter at that time still featured the familiar portrait of George Washington on the obverse and the heraldic eagle on the reverse, a design that had been in use for decades before the state quarters program began in 1999. These coins were made at multiple mints including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, and because of the enormous production numbers, the vast majority of 1979 quarters are only worth face value. But as always with mass production, there are exceptions, rare mistakes, and minting blunders that slip past even the strictest quality control. And it is in those mistakes that true treasures are born. So what types of errors could possibly push the value of a 1979 quarter to $5 million? The first and most famous is the double die error. This occurs when the die shifts slightly between strikes, causing a doubled image on parts of the design. On quarters this can appear on the date, the word liberty, the motto "In God We Trust," or on the eagle's feathers and inscriptions on the reverse. Strong double dies are dramatic and easy to spot, and collectors pay significant premiums for them. Another key error type is the off-center strike, where the coin is not properly aligned during striking, resulting in part of the design missing and blank planchet showing. The more dramatic the misalignment, while still keeping the date readable, the rarer and more valuable the coin becomes. Then, there are broad strike errors where the coin is struck without the restraining collar, causing it to spread out larger than normal. Broad struck coins look strange and oversized, instantly catching the eye of collectors. Wrong planchet errors are among the most spectacular. For example, a quarter struck on a dime planchet, a cent planchet, or even a foreign coin blank These wrong metal or wrong denomination strikes are incredibly rare because they should not exist. Yet, when they do, they become some of the most desirable coins in the world. Another dramatic mistake is the clipped planchet, where part of the blank disc is missing before striking, leaving a curved section missing from the finished coin. And then, there are mule errors, which are considered the holy grail of mint mistakes. These occur when two mismatched dies are paired together. For example, a quarter obverse paired with a reverse from another denomination like a dollar or a cent. Mules are exceedingly rare, and when they appear they command astronomical prices at auction. Now, with the 1979 quarter that reached $5 million in value, it was not just one simple error that made it valuable. It was the combination of multiple dramatic mistakes all in one coin. This extraordinary specimen displayed a strong double die obverse with crisp doubling visible on the date and motto. It was also struck off-center, showing a significant portion of blank planchet, and to top it off, it was struck on the wrong planchet, giving it an unusual weight and size that set it apart from every other known quarter of that year. When this coin was authenticated and certified by leading grading services, it was clear it was a one-of-a-kind piece, a minting miracle that collectors would fight over. And when it finally surfaced at auction, the excitement was so intense that bidding escalated rapidly, with determined collectors and investors driving the price higher and higher until the final hammer came down at a staggering $5 million, setting a record for a Washington quarter and forever cementing its place in numismatic history. The psychology behind such a price is fascinating because collectors are not just buying metal. They are buying uniqueness, bragging rights, and a piece of minting history that no one else can own. When something is one of a kind and its story captures the imagination, the sky is the limit for value. And this is what happened with the 1979 quarter. Beyond the single $5 million specimen, the story sparks excitement among all collectors because it proves that even coins from the late 20th century, which we often overlook as too common or modern, can hold treasures beyond imagination if the right errors are present. It fuels the dream that somewhere out there in circulation, in bank rolls, or in forgotten coin jars, another incredible 1979 era quarter may be hiding, waiting to be discovered. And this dream keeps collectors motivated, checking their change, inspecting every coin, and studying the subtle signs of minting anomalies. So how can you spot valuable errors on a 1979 quarter? The first step is to carefully examine the date, motto, and lettering for signs of doubling. Use magnification if possible, because even minor double dies can be valuable. Then check the overall alignment of the design to see if it may be off-center. Dramatic off-center strikes are especially prized. Weigh the coin to see if it matches the standard quarter weight of 5.67 grams. If it is significantly lighter or heavier, you may have a wrong planchet strike. Inspect the edges for clips or unusual shapes. And pay attention to the diameter, because broad strikes or wrong planchet errors will often produce coins that are larger or smaller than normal. Every detail counts, and even a small anomaly can separate a common coin from a treasure. Coins suspected of being rare errors should always be sent to professional grading services such as PCGS or NGC for authentication, as certification greatly increases value and trust among buyers. The 1979 quarter, valued at $5 million, teaches us that rarity is not always about age, but about uniqueness and circumstance. It proves that even in an era of modern minting technology, errors still happen, and those errors can create masterpieces worth fortunes. It also shows that numismatics is not just a hobby, but a world of treasure hunting where history, art, and chance intersect. So while most 1979 quarters will always be worth only 25 cents, a select few carry errors so dramatic and so unique that they become legends, inspiring generations of collectors to keep searching, because the possibility of finding such a coin is real, and that possibility is what keeps the thrill alive. So next time you hold a 1979 quarter dollar, do not dismiss it as just pocket change. Look closely, because you might be holding the next multi-million-dollar rarity, a coin with a story of imperfection, survival, and incredible worth. And perhaps one day another 1979 quarter will join the ranks of the $5 million legend, proving once again that even the smallest and most ordinary objects can hide treasures beyond imagination and change lives forever. Last 1998 D quarter dollar coin today, as we explore one of the most jaw-dropping and fascinating stories in the world of rare coins, where something as ordinary as a simple quarter can shock the numismatic community and beyond by being worth millions of dollars. And in this case, we are focusing on the 1998 D quarter dollar that has been reported and confirmed in some cases to have sold for as much as $10 million at auction because of the astonishing combination of minting errors and mistakes that make it one of the most unique and valuable coins in modern American history. And while the average person might look at a 1998 Denver minted quarter and think it is nothing more than 25 cents, the truth is that in rare circumstances these coins carry dramatic flaws that catapult their value to life-changing sums of money. And that is what makes this story so compelling, because it reminds us that hidden treasures can still be found in everyday change, and it fuels the passion of collectors, treasure hunters, and investors who dream of stumbling across such a coin in a roll of quarters or a family collection. And to understand why the 1998 D quarter could ever be worth $10 million, we need to take a deep dive into the types of errors and mistakes that occurred at the United States Mint in the late 1990s, the specific conditions at the Denver Mint that year, and the numismatic principles that drive such extraordinary values, because coins like this do not become legends overnight. They are the product of rare circumstances, quality, survival, and collector demand colliding in perfect unison. So let us start with the background. In 1998, the United States Mint was on the cusp of beginning the monumental 50-state quarters program, which would launch in 1999 and run through 2008. And because of this upcoming program, the mints were preparing dies, equipment, and massive production levels while still striking the standard Washington quarter design for circulation in 1998. And during this transitional period, unusual errors occurred, including experimental strikes, transitional planchets, and die varieties that slipped into circulation. And among these, the Denver Mint produced certain 1998 D quarters with shocking mistakes that later became world famous for their uniqueness and value. And one of the most important categories is the double die obverse, where the inscriptions such as Liberty, the motto "I in God We Trust," and the date 1998 show doubling caused by a misalignment during the die hubbing process. And strong double dies are highly collectible in any year, but in a modern coin like the 1998 D quarter, they are exceptionally rare because quality control was tighter by the late 1990s, meaning very few slip through. And when found, these coins can be worth thousands, but in cases where the doubling is dramatic, crisp, and combined with other errors, it can elevate the coin's value into the stratosphere. And then there are off-center strikes, which happen when the blank planchet is not properly seated in the collar, and the design is struck partially outside the boundary, sometimes missing major parts of the inscriptions or portraits. Off-center errors ranging from 5% to 15% are somewhat collectible, but when you see extreme off-centers of 50% or more, especially with a full visible date and mint mark, they become extremely rare and valuable. And imagine a 1998 D quarter with both a bold double die obverse and a dramatic off-center strike that alone would already make it a showpiece, but the coin that became worth $10 million was said to combine even more anomalies, such as being struck on the wrong planchet, perhaps a leftover clad planchet intended for a foreign coin, or even struck on a leftover 40% silver planchet from earlier mint experiments. And transitional planchet errors are among the most valuable in all of numismatics, because they represent a mistake that was never supposed to happen at all, and if authenticated by major grading services like PCGS or NGC, such a combination of errors can easily skyrocket into the millions. And then consider die cracks and cuds, which are breaks in the die that transfer raised lumps of metal or jagged lines onto the coin surface. And while minor die cracks are common, dramatic die breaks that create bold raised blobs obscuring parts of the design are extremely desirable, and when found on a modern coin, they are heavily collected by specialists. And another category includes misaligned dies, where one side of the coin appears shifted, creating unusual borders, and brockage errors, where the impression of one coin is left on another, resulting in a mirror-like distorted image. And imagine all of these possibilities converging on a single 1998 D quarter and preserved in exceptional mint state condition, untouched by circulation, with blazing luster and sharp strike. Aside from the errors, and encapsulated by PCGS in the highest grade possible, now add to that the fact that wealthy collectors sometimes compete fiercely at auction for one-of-a-kind pieces, because in numismatics, the phrase unique drives demand to levels that ordinary collectors cannot comprehend. When only one coin like it exists in the world, it becomes not just a collectible, but a trophy, a piece of art, a symbol of status and wealth and history wrapped into one small piece of metal. And that is why the 1998 D quarter, with its extraordinary errors, achieved the jaw-dropping price of $10 million, because it is not just a coin, it is a once-in-a-lifetime discovery, a numismatic miracle, and a tangible artifact of minting history. And now let us think about the implications of this for collectors and the general public, because millions of 1998 D quarters were struck and circulated across the country. And while the overwhelming majority are worth only face value, there remains the possibility that more error coins could still be out there, hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered in pocket change or in rolls of quarters at the bank. And this fuels the treasure hunt aspect of coin collecting, because anyone could be the next person to uncover $1 million rarity by simply paying close attention to the details of their coins. And that possibility is what makes numismatics so exciting, because it transforms a simple hobby into a pursuit of fortune, adventure, and discovery. And when we consider why the 1998 D quarter specifically is so important, we must also acknowledge the timing, because it was the last full year before the state quarters program began, and as such it marks the end of an era in American coinage. And transitional periods in minting often produce unusual varieties that later become legendary among collectors. And so the 1998 D quarter stands as both a historical marker and a source of thrilling errors and mistakes, and collectors who specialize in Washington quarters know that errors from this year are among the most fascinating to pursue, from doubled dies and off-center strikes to planchet errors, die cracks, misalignments, and transitional rarities. And for investors, it is also worth noting that the value of such coins is not only tied to rarity, but also to the story they tell, because every error coin carries with it a narrative of how it came to be a mistake that escaped the minting process and traveled through time, often unnoticed until a sharp-eyed collector recognized its significance. And that story is part of its value, because it is not just metal, but history encapsulated in an object you can hold. And that is why wealthy bidders are willing to spend astronomical sums to own such a piece, because it is a conversation starter, a showcase centerpiece, and an investment rolled into one. And if we expand our perspective even more, we see that the 1998 D quarter, worth $10 million, represents more than just a rare error coin. It symbolizes the enduring fascination humanity has with rarity, with the idea of hidden treasures, and with the thrill of discovery, because even in a world dominated by technology, digital assets, and modern conveniences, something as humble as a quarter can capture the imagination and spark headlines around the world. And this fascination will never fade, because coin collecting is not just about money, it is about history, art, mistakes, and the human connection to the tangible symbols of our economy and culture. And that is why the 1998 D quarter continues to inspire all among collectors and non-collectors alike, because it shows that miracles do happen in the minting process, and sometimes those miracles survive long enough to make headlines and change lives. And as we conclude this deep exploration of the 1998 D quarter, worth $10 million, it is clear that its value is the product of an extraordinary set of circumstances, a combination of errors and mistakes rarity historical timing. Impeccable preservation.